Okay.
All right, as they do like this. Take two.
Yeah.
Take two. All right, so I'm going to have to speak louder than, hey, good to see you. So we've been in a series of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. I don't know what we're in. I think this is the fourth talk on Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. They're all on YouTube if you're interested in the previous ones. The fact that you, quote, missed the other ones, if you missed the other ones, means nothing because it doesn't. Patanjali is very profound and we're going through models that he lays out. So I will give you a brief introduction to Patanjali Sutras, and for the longest time I've been wanting to talk to you about this book, anybody interested in the sutras. So Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is a very short, very condensed, pithy, tight manual, 196 lines, sutras, threads, of, it's a manual for consciousness. And so I always love this thought, like I just think, let's say somebody came to me and gave me the assignment and said, Devarshi, you have to, in 200 lines, you have to write down the way to attain a state of union, and practices in 200 lines the nature of consciousness in the universe, and then see what would happen. So this guy did it, and it's 2,000 years old, which for yoga scripture is a relatively young and new scripture, and I love it. I lived in a yoga ashram for the first time for nearly a decade. Hey Dasi, glad you're here. And studied the sutras then. And since then, sort of just also like for me the Course in Miracles, which I have here. The Course in Miracles is a non-dual philosophy. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is a non-dual philosophy. I read both, and from then on, all I see whenever I see anything that works, it's like, it's yoga. Oh, it's the Course in Miracles. Oh, the Course in Miracles is yoga. Oh, yoga is the Course in Miracles. They're saying the same thing. It's the universal curriculum on how to attain peace and what's the nature of why we are here and how do we attain a state of peace. And this is a pretty cool gradient approach. That's what I like. It's a really step-by-step approach on how to attain peace, happiness, union, which is what yoga means, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to be reading and using this book, which is Mukunda Stiles' book, but I want to show you this book. So if anybody wants to study the sutras, so when I first started reading the sutras many years ago, there were 3 copies available in English. And what I did was had all 3 copies and laid them out and would look at the different ways that each one was interpreted. But this man, and he came to Kripalu and gave me this book, which was really wonderful. He took 12 copies of the sutras. So when you buy this book, you actually get 12 copies of the different sutras. And what he did was, so we'll open it up to sutra number 1 to give you an idea. So here's sutra number 1. First you see it in the Devanagari script, then you see it phonetically, and then he breaks it down like a dictionary, what atta means, yoga, nushasanam, and each there. Then he gives you these 12 translations of that first sutra by really great people. Eric Fierstein, Houston Naneshri, Swami Prabhupada, Taimini, Vivekananda, really cool, and some feminine perspectives also, which is great. And then you get to read them all and compare them. What I also love is that there's lots of space, so what I like to do is this a great thing to put on your kitchen table for coffee, read a sutra, meditate on it, write down your own version of what it means to you after sitting with the content. And then it's a great way to go through the 200 lines and to really learn the sutras. This is called The Unadorned Thread of Yoga by Salvatore Zambita. It's a hard book to get and it's expensive, but you have to remember when you buy this book, you're buying 12 copies. You just bought 12 sutra books. So you can take a picture of it if you want, and there you go. So before I go on with where we ended last time, anybody have any questions or anything about Patanjali that would help you settle in and feel ready for today's talk? Okay. So know this is a discussion, so at any time, if anything does anything from, I don't understand that, I'd love to hear more about that, that really pissed me off, please stop and say all of that so we can have a really worthy discussion. We ended at chapter 1, so we're starting at chapter 2. The first chapter, and there are 4 chapters in Patanjali Sutras, so basically 50 verses in each. They're called padas. A pada means a foot. And often scripture, they like to put it in 4 padas in it because they believe in like 4 feet is very stable. And the first one, you sort of say, this is where we're going. This is what we're talking about. This is the nature of consciousness. This is what union has the possibility of bringing you. So we just read that chapter. It's like, this is where we're going. The second chapter now, we start the nuts and bolts. These are the practices. So chapter 2 is titled The Practices, I think it's titled The Practices of Yoga. The practices of being immersed in spirit, okay? So, anybody interested?
Hey, Devarshi.
Yes.
I was trying to remember that there was something, because I've been watching the videos on YouTube, there was something that I wanted to ask you, and you said I can ask anything. And it tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you, like at one point, and other people do this too, and I just want to say this, you compare like the trees and the butterfly, they don't care what's going on, they don't compare each other, and it's like a comparison to a human. But what comes up for me whenever people say that, because I hear it often, is that the trees and the butterflies don't have the agreements, like the same agreements. So how, like what makes you compare, or maybe other people, like nature to human? And I get it, I get the idea of what it could mean, but just what comes to me is that the butterflies and the trees don't have the agreements that humans come, so I just feel like there's no comparison.
Okay, so it's such a great, I'm not,
It just came.
yeah, it's wonderful, and I want to clarify the question, actually, before I even comment on it. So you're saying that what I said was that I was comparing us, like, to nature, per se.
It seems like, if I recall, I could be a little wrong, but just using an example about, the trees maybe, or the butterflies or nature, and like, they're not doing that, so why should we? Like, why are we not trusting that everything's gonna be perfect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just feel like as a human, there's no comparison to the way nature works.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
because of our agreements, right?
Okay, I'm not sure about the because of our agreements part.
Meaning, like, we're human, so I agree to work because I live in this house, because I have to pay bills, because like the things that I tend to spin out on, of like fear or like what's gonna happen, and
Okay.
those agreements, meaning like as a human, like the trees aren't paying bills, and the trees don't have to worry about not lying because they have a conscience and an ego, and that's what I mean about our agreements.
Right. So I totally, I got the wondering about the comparison. Can they be compared? No matter what, I think it's a valuable thing to say, wow, look at that. Not to necessarily to compare, to say, wow, that tree seems to be in a state of peace. Not necessarily comparing, but it's like, that tree doesn't seem to worry about the past or the present. At least I'm protecting it. Could, as far as I know. I don't really know. That tree could be very worried about Donald Trump being president.
That too.
I'm not sure, but I'm projecting that tree isn't. So it's just a fun thing to go, well, there's an example of something that's not, in the past or the future. Can I be? Is really the question. I'm more interested in the question that it brings up, rather than is it true or not, or false or not. It's more like, what an interesting question. Can I be at peace like that? you know. And I do look at you know, the creation of nature and say, wow, nature is very interesting and it has a lot of reflections that have a lot of teachings in it for me. You know, so I definitely look to nature for teachings. At the same sense, you know, what we're learning about this nature of reality, there's Purusha and Prakriti. Okay, so this is the Samkhya thought of non-duality. Purusha is pure consciousness. Prakriti is the material realm. So right there we have the tension of life. You know, how can I be an infinite, eternal, whole being stuck in a body in time and space, you know, different than someone else, going to die, you know, like these two things are in constant tension, okay? And so our making peace, our being at peace, is making peace with the relationship between Purusha, pure consciousness, infinite consciousness, and the material realm. Okay? So that's really what this manual is about, is how do we make peace, living in both. You know, having this very weird temporary experience of separation in a body as an infinite, eternal, whole being. Like, but lots of people don't believe that. Lots of people are over here and I am a body. That's the truth. That's their truth. I'm a body. You know, I happen to, and I could be wrong and I don't even care, you know, because it's not about being right or wrong, it's about being happy. You know, it's one of my favorite quotes from A Course in Miracles. Would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? You know, so I'm not interested in the right wrong game. I'm interested, there are beliefs that are more helpful for happiness. And I don't care whether the beliefs are true or not. I care whether the beliefs are helpful, because it's not up to me. I can't tell you what's true. I mean, ultimately, I understand nothing. And I know you understand nothing. That's the basis. We sit here and go, I mean, I love to say, I don't know who I am, where I am, what I'm up to. We're on a planet hurtling through the universe. I appear to be so, and like, I know nothing. And then we have these little brains and we think we know something, and it's like, even if you're got the smartest brain in the whole world, we're looking at the infinite cosmos, you know nothing. You know, so it's so silly that we walk around pretending we know something. You know, so knowing that, now, I know that I know nothing. Even still I have a mind, so I gotta make my best wild ass guess. So that's what I'm on. This is a wag. You know, a wag is a wild ass guess. So I'm making my wild ass guesses. And with my wild ass guesses, I have a lot of conviction. Okay? So for example, we talked about this before, the belief in past lives. I don't care whether past lives are true or not. I happen to believe in past lives. I don't care whether you believe in past lives. For me, the belief is helpful. And there are things in my life I can't really explain well without that belief. Okay, experiences that I've had. I have a lot of conviction around it. I've read a lot about it. I really believe it. But it's true that someone who doesn't believe in reincarnation can find peace and happiness and enlightenment, and someone who believes in reincarnation can find belief in it. So the rightness of it isn't worth even arguing. You know, the question is it helpful? You know, and we get really tight-ass about our beliefs. You know, that's the whole problem with what's going on in the world right now. Is, you know, what Patanjali helps us do is he helps us become the believer of our beliefs versus what most people are, I am a body and I am my beliefs, okay? And my job, if I'm a parent, is to make my child believe what I believe, you know, and that's how I pass on who I am, and rather than like, wow, who are you? You know, which would be a whole other way of parenting. Tell me what you came here for, you know, kind of deal, which would be a whole different way of viewing parenting.
So you just said Patanjali is the, what did you say, the believer of the
He helps us in this process of this gradual awakening. He helps us remove ourselves from our beliefs to become the believer, to associate with being the self that is the believer of our beliefs, that chooses our beliefs. So most of us are fully indoctrinated in our beliefs. You know, as I like to say, it's like this. What octopus on my face? There's no octopus on my face, you know. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, you see that octopus on my face? You know, here we don't see it. Our beliefs are transparent to us. We don't know that we're operating through them. So the process, so I'm indoctrinated. I think I'm free, you know, but I'm actually not. I'm being done, you know. So as I like to say, is it doing you or are you doing it? Well, here it's doing me, and I'm just seeing through my rose-colored glasses. In this process of yoga, we begin to associate with the self, and it's like, oh, wow, I get to evaluate all the indoctrinated beliefs that I live under, and I get to choose whether I want them or not, whether it's helpful or not. Wow, look what happens when I put this on. A whole reality happens, and I see through it. Wow, look what happens when I put this one on. Oh my God, you look so different. You know, like, so then we start to, the more we start doing that, the more we start letting go of all the beliefs, you know, because there's an experience that's beyond belief. And that is really what Patanjali is helping us get to, is the self that's beyond belief, which is what really the practice of meditation is about too. You know, you begin first, when we first start sitting down and meditating, it's like, oh my God, the mind chatter is just constant. Oh my God, I've got to sit down and I'm supposed to be quiet. I should really be quiet, but who's talking? You shut up. No, you shut up. Okay, I'm sitting down. Oh, my leg hurts. Oh my God, where's the, that's the voice that's supposed to be quiet. Well, then you be quiet. Where's the off switch to this? Would someone shut me up? And we can't seem to get away from that. So then it's like, as we watch it, suddenly, not suddenly, but after a while, it's like now you're watching that. And that can sometimes take years, you know. And then you start to watch it, and then you start to disassociate from it. It's not turn it off. You just begin to go like, wow, those are the thoughts floating through the sky, you know, and I can sit over here in a quiet space and watch them. Okay, and that's the beginning of establishing, you know, those people who are trying to turn off the mind. Like, if you go and try and turn off your mind, you've just married it. You know, you don't turn off the mind. You begin to disassociate from it. So, and remove yourself and associate with a higher self. These are the practices that he's laying out. So, chapter 2, on being absorbed in spirit. So he says here, that is, I read chapter 1, so wait. Chapter 2, the practices of being immersed in spirit. So he says here, the practical means for attaining higher consciousness consist of 3 components. So how many people are familiar with the yamas and the niyamas? Okay. So the yamas and niyamas are 5 yamas. These are 5 precepts of things that need to be weeded out of our consciousness in our garden, like weeding out violence, weeding out dishonesty, weeding out, you know, not stealing, weeding out non-truthfulness. And then there are 5 niyamas, which are things we want to water and plant in our garden and really nurture. So they're purity and cleanliness and contentment. So have a practice of trying to be content in all situations. But then the last 3 are these: tapas, swadhyaya, and ishvari pranadhana. So right here he says that the practical means for attaining higher consciousness consist of 3 components, and he's listing the last 3 niyamas. Self-discipline and purification, that's tapas, and we'll talk about that in a second. Self-study, and that's, you know, you're the only thing that's going on here. The only thing to do is constantly be learning about you and how you do you. And the last is devotion to the Lord. So great faith in, you know, and prayer and in help that you'll, you know, like, I want to see, you know, I want to see, you know, that prayer to God. I want to see. So let's just break these apart for example. Self-discipline and purification, tapas. Tapas really means practice, deliberate practice, okay? When you put yourself in a deliberate practice to grow spiritually, you set up a really cool learning environment for yourself. So you can name any practice, and we have tons of them all the time. I'm going to be gluten-free. I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to sit down and do yoga 3 times a week for a half hour. I'm going to stop swearing. I'm going to, like any practice that we put ourselves in is a tapas, okay? That will require some self-discipline, and we get purified in the process, okay? Now here's the cool thing when we choose a deliberate tapas. I basically say to the universe, I want to purify, I want to get better, okay? So I'm going to create a tapas. I'm going to choose a tapas. I'm going to do my breathing exercises 30 minutes 3 times a week, okay? That's my tapas. I'm committing to it. Now that I've set that framework up, the universe is great because now I start to learn because I've set this tension up with the universe, okay? And, like, oh, I don't really want to do it today. Oh, well, I'll do it. I was going to do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but now I'll do it, Monday, Tuesday, skip a number of days, and then, oh, I'm too full to do it. Oh, so wow, immediately I've got this mirror that just got put up, with me because I created a self-purification mode, and now I got a mirror. And I'm in relationship with myself. Here's what's cool, what I love about tapas. When we deliberately tell the universe, I want to work on myself, when we set up a thing, we actually help ourselves out a lot, because if we don't do that, then you're over here, I don't want to learn anything, okay? Not into anything, guess what happens? The universe is going bang, smash, boom, boom, and we don't know why, right? When you actually set up a practice, the universe is like, wow, this guy really wants to learn, I'm going to hand it to him through his study, and it's really cool because it actually does help the rest of our life to set up deliberate, conscious tapas. So I highly recommend that you, be, and we all are, but it's really good to make your tapas deliberate. And then when you're in tapas, the only thing you're studying is yourself. How do I do me? How do I do me in relationship? I made an agreement, I'm breaking my agreement, what does that mean? But I don't want to be a tight ass, some days I miss, and oh, okay, well, I'm like, wow, all that's worthy stuff. Then, of course, there's great faith in the Lord. Please, God, help me. Please, God, help me. Please, every time I go to do, if there's something new and available for me to learn, to see, to experience, I'm open, I want to share this quote that I heard this week that's sort of been a game changer for me. So one of the clients that I was coaching told me that his acting coach told him this and he never forgot it. True listening is listening with the intent to be changed. True listening is listening with the intent to be changed. And it's like, wow, most of us listen, zero intent to be changed. Okay?
Listen to respond.
Yeah, so you're listening to respond, but not really to when you truly listen, it's like what you're about to say, if I really get it, I'm open to I really get it. And you have given me a gift that changes me, okay? So I'm likening that to actually saying to God, I'm listening to you, God. And when we put out our prayers, our devotion, I want to be the best that I can be. I want to find peace. I want to be enlightened. I want to be an example. I want to be free. I want to be happy. I'm listening, God. I'm open. I am open to being changed. That's Ishvar Pranadhana.
So, question.
Yes.
But in that case, the listener, God, the intent to change, so there's a willingness from who is, there's a nuance there that I'm not getting.
I love the word willingness. The Course in Miracles always talks about all you need is a little willingness. That's all God needs is a little willingness, which is, again, that willingness is the intent to be changed.
So by you, because I'm seeing this reference, but if you're interacting and you're the listener, right, and opening up to anything that is projecting, how's that happen in the change in the listening? Is it always?
I'm not sure about the question, so I'm trying to get the question. I want to.
Because in that case, right, you're connecting with a greater, like a larger consciousness. But if it's in being, because when you were talking, I was referring to the act of being the receiver of listening. So you were saying, right, are we clearly listening and trying to understand, or how would that be to change? But how is it if it's not? Because God is everywhere, but how would it be then if it was like?
Oh, see, I mean, so I think I'm getting your question. For me, when I'm saying, okay, God, and I put out my prayers, I'm listening to everything, because God is talking to me in, the conversation that we're having, and oh my God, I just, ripped my mic off my thing, and like God's talking to me. I'm listening.
So in the listening, there's always an opportunity to transmute, to change.
Mm-hmm. So this willingness to change, let's just leave that out there, because it's a big piece in the practices, this willingness to change. And it's really interesting how not willing to change most people are, okay? Like most people, the thing is like, let's resist change in every way that we can. Let me control the world so that I don't feel what's going on here, and that's my job. So that I don't have to change. But if we're really open to the change, then it changes everything, which can be really scary. All right, let's continue. We're cruising along here we got through that first, yeah, exactly. So you can see why these lines go somewhere. These practices cultivate an attitude conducive to being absorbed in spirit, and they minimize the power of primal causes of suffering. Okay, so this attitude of being willing to change, will minimize your suffering. Okay, now, we're going into this model that many of you have known. I love this model. It says here, there are 5 causes of suffering. Okay, now, when I read stuff like this in a scripture, I'm like, huh? 5 causes of suffering is going to tell me the 5 causes of suffering? I want to know, okay? So the model that I'm about to lay out here is the 5 causes of suffering. Now, many of you I've talked about them because it's one of my favorite yoga models. And I just want to say again that Patanjali, lots of people attribute these 5 causes of suffering. They're called the Kleshas. And a lot of people attribute, I have, in that, Mike, would you do me a favor? In that black thing there are markers. Thank you. Is any of those big, thick markers would do. So these 5 kleshas, causes of suffering, thank you so much. Really appreciate that. 5 kleshas. And I love a good map. So lots of people attribute Patanjali to creating the 5 kleshas. That's not true. He compiled this information. They're much older than Patanjali's Sutras, and they're included in the Sutras. And it's part of, again, Samkhya philosophy. So the first cause of suffering, actually, the first klesha is the cause of the other 4 that follow it. So to me, I go, all of them, all of the 4 that will follow the first one come because of the first one. So it's like, really, we only have 1 to get, right? Because if you get the first one, you get all the other 4. So the first cause of suffering, the first cause of suffering is called avidya. Lack of knowing, and this is not from the head, of the true self. It's saying when we lose knowing who we truly are, we will suffer. And us, all the 4 that will follow afterwards, which are very interesting, follow. So what the hell does that mean? So I like to sum up, and this is also the Course in Miracles, and this is where the non-dual philosophy comes in. Yoga says, again, getting back to don't care whether it's true or not, okay? But yoga says you, the true you, your true self, are infinite, eternal, and whole. All suffering comes from when you lose track of that. Okay? Like an infinite, eternal, whole being can't suffer. Like what suffering can an infinite, eternal, whole being suffer? Even suffering is like interesting, you know? And as I like to say, there's one other part to this sentence, or you're not. You're either infinite, eternal, and whole, or you're not. Those are the two choices. There's not many other choices. You can't sort of be infinite. So, when we go, I'm infinite, eternal, and whole, you know, I like this because, you know, that bumper sticker that says, what would Jesus do? You know, it's like, what would an infinite, eternal, whole being do in this situation? How would an infinite, eternal, whole being act in this situation? If I were infinite, eternal, and whole, how would I feel? Okay? Would I be afraid of this? Okay? So here's the gig. Every fear, every worry, every anxiety that you have is related to the belief that you forgot that you're infinite, eternal, and whole. Every fear, every anxiety, every worry, when you get down to the bottom of it, you believe that you're a body rather than an infinite, eternal, whole being. So it's like, you know, name it. I'm afraid of snakes. Well, what's so scary about that? I might get bit. Well, what's so scary about that? I might get bit and I might die. Okay, well, that one's easy. I'm afraid I might lose my job. What's so scary about that? Well, then I won't be able. Then I'll be homeless. Well, what's so scary about that? Then no one will love me. Then I'll want to die. Okay, great. So now we're back to death again. I mean, no matter what it is, death is the culprit of our fear, worry, and anxiety. So, wow, it's just giving us the roadmap right here. This is the practice. This is the main practice here. You are constantly fighting with your infinite, eternal, and whole, or you're not. In every moment. In every moment. One of the things that I love about the Course says, I could see peace instead of this. It's a wonderful practice. Well, often the only way I can see peace is believing that I'm an infinite, eternal, and whole being. Now, here's what I love again about right versus happy. I don't care whether I'm infinite, eternal, and whole. I mean, in truth, I 100% believe that I'm infinite, eternal, and whole. Like I'll bet my life on it. Okay, you know. So I believe that. However, if I get to the end and God goes, Tabarsha, that was it. That was your one life, and you're dead, and you're out. My lights are out. Like I'm gone. There's no me. There's no nothing. And I would still say, holding on to this belief made my little teeny life a lot more fun. So I chose a fun belief. This is, I will tell you, the best belief that anyone can hold, period. The best belief that anyone can hold. You want to have a good life? This is, if I'm selling beliefs over here for sale. This is a belief. Buy this belief and it will change your life. And again, forget fighting with whether it's true or not. That's your best belief.
Is that the same as trust and believe?
Well, certainly it takes a lot of trust to believe that we're infinite, eternal, and whole. So this is where faith does come in. Because here's the fun things about infinite, eternal, and whole. Our mind cannot conceive of the infinite. The human mind cannot hold or conceive of infinite and eternal. It's an experience. It is not. The moment we conceptualize it and start talking about it, and I make it a word, it's something finite. But infinite, eternal, and whole cannot be, it does not end, and this human mind cannot hold a no boundary thing. It's an experience. Every yoga practice is designed to help you experience your infinite, eternal whole self, which is different than believe it or know it or think it. Experience it. So this goes back to a quote that I said to Mike today in the gym, which is, the moment you start talking about Zen, you're far from it. You know, like so. But saying all that, here we are talking about Zen because we have to get, you know, to point towards it. But the experience of oneness is an experience that if we could give it, you know, we would give it. But all you can do is just sort of point that way. But it's an experience. And yoga, this is why I love yoga. And this is such a good one. I want to share this today. So today, my guru from Kripalu, Amit Desai, called me, which was really wonderful. And we were having a discussion, and he said this thing. He said, somebody asked him, what is the history of yoga? And he said, I answered and said, yoga has no history. Yoga is eternal. Yoga always has been and always will be. And yoga is the infinite, you know, and we have always and will always throughout the eons tap into, you know, Sanatana Dharma, the religionless religion, which is what Sanatana Dharma means, the eternal truth, you know, which is different. So there's no history to that. Like it's beyond time-space, the time-space continuum. I was like, oh, Gurudev, that is such a great answer. I will not forget it. And then I said, I'm going to tell the people today and put your name on it. So I thought that was a really good answer. All right, anything else about this infinite, eternal, and whole thing?
Kind of side note, maybe you don't, maybe you want to answer, maybe you don't. Does this book tell you the path to get there? Is it the yamas and niyamas? Is it, you know what I mean?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
And it gives a wonderful gradient approach to how to get there.
Yeah.
But here's the funny thing about it. Guess what it requires?
Being infinite, eternal, and whole?
It requires practice and discipline and doing, you know, the Bible says, you know, many are called but few are chosen. I think that's wrong. It's everybody's called but few choose it. You know, it's all out. It's all right in front of us, you know, but few of us really do the work. You know, few of us really go, I'm going to dedicate myself to that practice of purification. Everybody's called, but few are doing it.
Yeah, interesting, because I tend to like to receive the history or the, and then I'm good.
Yeah, and then you think you know. Then you think you know what's going on.
And I did not practice. But I am.
So,
Okay, so
another
yes.
question that happens all the time in my yoga teacher trainings, people say, is yoga a religion? And I love that question because I say, no, it's not. Here's the difference. A religion, here's the list. You want to be a part of this religion? Here's all our doctrines. And literally in church, you sit down, and at some point in most churches, you're like, we believe, and the whole congregation, you know, sings out what the beliefs are of if you're a member. And of course, if you're not a member, there's generally consequences like burning in hell forever, stuff like that. So, you know, believe this or not, okay? Yoga doesn't care what you believe, okay? It doesn't care at all. It doesn't have any list of tenets that you believe. It says, practice these practices, and you're going to have an experience of yourself. You're going to have an experience of union. You're going to have an experience of your true inheritance. It's a set of practices. It doesn't give a hoot what you believe. What happens when you do the practices is it starts to wear away at the beliefs that you hold, all of your beliefs, even your precious ones. And my experience of meditation for myself is when we get to the place where we pop off into the beliefless belief place, even your best beliefs have to go. because you're sitting in the oneness in the state of present moment nowness, and there are no beliefs there. So it doesn't matter what belief you have, they gotta go. So that's our first little cause of suffering, and this is something to live by. Okay. One other thing that I like about this belief, again, even as just a practice, is if I believe, and as I told you, I like the belief, I believe it to be true, that I'm infinite, eternal, and whole. I'm going to die holding that belief, going, all right, I'm ready for my next, interesting thing. I hope to have internal eyes wide open as I head into the next, learning experience. But here's what's fun. So I believe that I'm infinite, eternal, and whole. Well, I can't just believe it for myself. I actually believe that we're all infinite, eternal, and whole. Okay? So then what happens is I meet someone, and rather than going like, wow, I go like, oh, you again. We've been together forever. We're going to be together forever. Why don't we join forces and, have fun forever, Like that's a whole different way to greet a person than what happens next. Okay? So now we're going into Klesha number 1. We're going on to Klesha number 2. So if you forget that you are infinite, eternal, and whole, then what happens is asmita. Asmita is I-ness, me-ness. It's the personality self, and it's the I-ness. So what happens then is, I'm a man, I'm 66, you're a woman, I have this amount of money, you have that amount of money, I'm Christian, you're Jewish, I'm American, you're, from, I'm not sure, I'm like, off we go, okay. And all we see is comparisons and differences, okay? And we're in the land of competition and comparison, okay? This is where most of the world is living, in asmita. A bunch of comparisons and identifications with, let me gather all the people that I think are like me over here. Let's be against all the people that aren't like me who are over there. We start all the games the moment we believe that we are these bodies. And then it becomes about protecting my bodies. I need a bigger home. I need a bigger fence. I need stronger security. I need more money in the bank. I need more, I need more power. I need more control. I need more. Okay, that's all happens because of asmita. Would a bunch of infinite, eternal, and whole beings be playing those games? No. No. Yes.
So when does this separation occur? Is it at birth? Is it past lives? Is it when you're 5?
That's a really great question. I love that question. So Kaki's question, I'm just going to repeat this one. So when does that separation from the drop, the fall, which is described in, the Bible and everything else, that initial separation from God, when does it happen? And I would say, and also, why does it happen? Okay? So let's make up a story. Okay? And I've read many answers to this question. Whether any of them are true or not, it doesn't matter. But let's just say that we're all together. Let's just put us all together for a moment. We're all in heaven, okay? Whatever that is. We are all so happy forever and ever and ever and ever. And ever and ever and ever and ever. We're so happy and at peace forever and ever and ever. Never and ever, never. We're just at peace forever. Never. Never, 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 never. Wouldn't one of us go like, somebody do something? Let's create a mess, wow, what about forgetting? What about forgetting? And then we create a planet, forget that we created the planet, get on the planet, forget we're the creators of it, so that we could forget, only to remember again to say, wow, was that fucking awesome. I forgot, I remembered, I never forgot, and I chose the whole thing, and wow, was that cool. Possibly, And, you know, I've read many books. There's one book that I really, really love called The Michael Handbook. And I don't know if any of you have ever read it. It's so funny that not many people seem to have read it. It's by a man named Jose Stevens. I think in the 70s or 80s. It was a really popular book, channeled supposedly by the Archangel Michael. I don't care about any of that, but it was a good book. And it lays out there and it says that we choose to come down. Let's say it actually says that we're a soul group. So my belief would be that we all are part of the same soul group. And as an entity, we came down together, and then now that we're on the material planet, we all split off. But now, there's a part of me called Dasi over there, and there's me, and there's a part of me called Bree over there, and that's me, and there's a part of me called Rosemary over there. But we're all me, but we look separate here for a while. And then we go through this progression. Infant soul, baby soul, young soul, mature soul, and old soul. So 5 levels of being souls on the planet. And then it gives these descriptions about what's going on for infant souls, baby souls, young souls, mature souls, and old souls. So infant souls are just getting it together, and they're busy creating karma. They're often playing out the monads, the murderer, the murderee, the rapist, the rapee, like all the really tough stuff that's going on with infant souls, and they're busy creating the karma. Young souls are doing similar things. Mature souls young souls are the fundamentalists. They get really into the right and wrong games. This is right, this is wrong, I know. They want to feel safe, so they got to know what's right and what's wrong. But then they're very violent in the process of the duality, while they're being young souls. And there's mature souls who start to go like, okay, let's work together a bit. And then there's old souls which are like, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, let's just, like I've been around the block and whatever. Then what's interesting, and this is what I love, then we cycle off the planet, and there's 2 more soul levels. So it says there's 7 different soul levels. And there's transcendental souls and infinite souls. And it says, so let's just say, make something up, let's just say that I've gone through my 5 lifetimes, I'm an old soul, and I cycle off the planet, no longer need to be embodied on the planet, but I'm assigned to my brothers and sisters, okay? So I'm a guardian angel to my brothers and sisters that I know, and I know the path and the suffering of forgetting and everything, and so it's my job to help you. So my kids used to always say to me, like, why are you always talking to your angels and guides? So like things would happen and I'd be like, let's call on the angels. And whoops, an ambulance just went by. Let's call on the angels. Oh, this is happening. Well, you want that? Let's call on the angels. And they're like, what's going on with these angels? And I'm like, well, imagine if you lived all these lifetimes and then you cross over and you're assigned to someone and they never talk to you, they never acknowledge you, you're helping them constantly, they're in no relationship with you. It says literally that they have a party. And the angels have a party when one of us comes online and starts to use them and acknowledge them. They're literally like, we got one! Like, in Home Depot when they ring the bell, like, for the sale, like, sale, like, okay, another one's online. So use your angels and guides. I mean, wouldn't you want to be used? So like, to me, it's like, they want to be used. So ask them and thank them all the time. Be in relationship with them and be open to listening. So that's just a possibility of coming here, but the true answer to the question is, I don't know. But certainly it seems like, and I'll give you another answer that I really like. This goes lots of different ways, so I'm gonna go. Anybody know who Jacob Collier is? Okay, so
amazing young musician.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
Off beyond the beyond musician. If you don't know who Jacob Collier is, YouTube Jacob Collier, because this guy taps into the universe and he's off the freaking charts. Mm-hmm. And at 14, he's a musical savant beyond what you can imagine. And now he plays with every major artist and Boston Symphony Orchestras and stuff. Anyways, I saw a master class with Jacob Collier where he's got the London Symphony Orchestra behind him, and he's talking to all of these high-end music students. And he's talking about music, but he's talking about life. And he says, music is all about tension and release. He says, you build up some tension in the music. Can you feel, so you play some, can you feel that? And then you release it. And then, can you feel that? And like, this tension and release. And then he was talking about the whole universe is just nothing more than tension and release. tension and release. It's the in and out breath. In and out. Everything is moving in and out. Everything is in movement. You know, I was watching what are they called, those foilers? You know, where people seem to like float on the water. Tension and release. Create tension, release. Create tension, release. Create tension, release. You know, when we create, we're working, Keki works a lot with this thing called the creative process. You put out your desire, what you want, you put out where you're at, it creates a creative tension. If you hold that desire, there's a tension there. The way to release that, you want to release the tension. You want to keep doing the things that are going to release the tension so that you attain it. But of course, when you do, there's another goal that creates more wonderful tension. So, in yoga, there are the yugas. Anybody familiar with the yugas?
Different eras? No.
Yes. So the Kali Yuga, many people have
Yeah.
heard of the Kali Yuga. Okay, so the Kali Yuga is the Dark Ages, okay? So according to philosophy, we've just come out of the Kali Yuga. So that's the good news. However, here's the not so good news. The Yugas are, it takes 12,000 years for us to fall from the Satya Yuga, at one with God, to the Kali Yuga. It takes another 12,000 years to go from the Kali Yuga back to the Satya Yuga. That's 24,000 years to cycle around, okay? So that's in time. You know, now we're talking about infinity. So a lot of the, like for example, the Sphinx is 12,000 years old. Okay, so here we have this example of something from the Satya Yuga, you know, where we don't have a clue. They have way more information than we had. How that thing was built, it was, you know, it's on these ley lines of the planet and metal bends inside and, you know, like you know, and there's we can't comprehend what those great pyramids are, you know. So that's at the Satya Yuga, and then we descend to the Dark Ages where people are lucky to live 36 years old, and it's war and pestilence and rape and, you know, like horrible, you know, violence and famine and, you know, and now we're on our way out, okay? We just went from the Kali Yuga, we just went over the line to the Dwapara Yuga, and then there's the Satya Yuga.
Did that
And
just happen, like in the past year?
not past year, but past, but not so long ago, past like 40 years ago,
Okay.
which means nothing. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we've been in the Dwapara Yuga, and then we've got like 8,000 more years to go back to this oneness point. But then again, what happens when we get to the oneness? Everyone goes, this is great, but let's go back and, you know, differentiate. You know, now that we're all one, let's go out and, you know, diversify. It's God. What the scriptures say is this is God's in and out breath. We're all back into God. Then God goes.
Wow.
Then God goes. So the yugas are the eternal, infinite out breath of God.
Okay, we'll write that down.
You know, yeah, which is why in the end, in the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna falls into Krishna's mouth, you know, God's mouth, God's breath. You know, that's where he sees the whole infinite cosmos held in everything. So, fun, fascinating, possible, I don't know. You know, like, yeah. So Asmita, this is where the problems begin. Okay. Now, the moment, you know, we have Asmita, these two go together, 3 and 4. We have Raga, which is we start to desire things. And we have Devesha, which is we start to be repulsed by things. Okay, so desire, resist. Okay, the moment you're into a body, I like this, you like that. I don't want this to happen to you, I don't want that to happen. And all of those, our desires will cause us suffering, and our resistance will cause us suffering. Okay, when you're back to this, and you're an infinite, eternal, and whole being, I mean, what's there to desire, really? Or I would say it's not about desire, it's a different kind of desire. It's what's there to be attached to. Okay? An attachment is what really creates, you know, attachment to the desire. is what creates the desire and resist. We're attached to the desire and we're attached to the resistance. Someone who's not attached still has desires and, you know, resistances. You know, they still move out of the way of a moving bus. I would prefer not to be, you know, hit. Or they still, you know, say, I really like that food, but they're not attached to it. So there is a difference here in this raga and devesha. So any thoughts about that?
It makes sense that if you just believe that you're infinite, eternal, and whole, that's my thought, is that, yeah.
So, and
It's
when
just
you're
that.
infinite, eternal, and whole, you can have things. You just know that they're not your things, you know. And then, you know, it's like I always think of this during the Depression when people lost, you know, all of their stuff. The amount of people that committed suicide, men especially, because they were their things. Oh my God, I'm, you know, lost. I'm a failure. I'm nothing. It's like, wow, you know, okay. I remember this is, it's for some reason this day always comes to my mind. September 11th of the World Trade Center. It was a beautiful day. I was living in Chicago. It was a gorgeous September day. And I had a client coming. My daughter was busy playing in our backyard, and I could see the skyline of Chicago. And a client arrives, and she comes in and she says, you know, I just heard the weirdest thing on the news, on the radio as I was coming over, that the World Trade Center just got hit by a plane. Do you mind if before we go into our session, we turn on the news? So turn on the news, we're standing at the television, watching the World Trade Center, a plane had hit. While we're standing there watching it, the second, you know, so while the first plane hit, you're like, oh, that's horrible, it could have been an accident, maybe the airline pilot had a heart attack, we're trying to figure out what's going on. Second plane hits, and you're like, this is no accident. Two planes don't just accidentally hit, you know, the World Trade Center. So paradigm shift, instantly, okay? So then it's like, wow, are we in a war? Is this going to happen? I'm looking out at the, you know, Sears Tower and, you know, the John Hancock building and going like, okay, you know, and planes are flying and it's like, you know, is this the moment? You know, is this the moment? You know, well, if I was attached, you know, I would be a whole lot like, wow, I mean, I'm going to lose my home. I'm going to lose my, you know, it's like, wow, maybe the best thing in this moment is run to Walgreens and steal all the antibiotics. You know, like when you're like rules change, boom, rules are changed. You know, like okay, what do we do now? You know, but often again, this inability to change with what is going on. It's like I'm not attached. Like wow, if God wants to change the game, I'm on for whatever that game is. You know, I'm going to learn from whatever that game is. You know, it's not to say that I would like it per se. You know, but. You know, and for many years I was looking for the safest place to live on the planet. And then I totally changed my tune. I said, that is so ridiculous. I want to be in the epicenter. When the bomb goes off, let me think it would take me right away. I don't want to suffer on the edges. You know, I'd like to be hit fast. Thank you. So those are there. Last one is number 5, and this is called Abhi Nivesha. Now this is where the rubber hits the road. This is the final thing to go is our fear of death. But that's that deep instinctual fear of death. And Ram Dass, I've talked about this. He talked about this moment and about his Abhi Nivesha experience when he had his stroke. And after his stroke, he said, I failed, gang. I mean, and one of the many things that I totally appreciated about him was like, I was having my stroke and he said, I didn't have any peace. My yoga was not to be found. I was a neurotic Jewish mess. You know, I was like, oh my God, I'm having a stroke, I'm dying. He said, you know, so back to the drawing board. You know? And I was so glad that he told on himself. You know, and then of course, and Dasi had the great honor of being with him in those years where he said things like, I would never wish a stroke on any of you, but I would wish all the things that I have learned from this stroke for all of you. So he ended up getting the teaching that he really needed for his own enlightenment, which we know was his real reason for being here. Now, the way it looks on the externals, we don't, that's the external look. What happened for him internally, bless his soul, and he continued to be an inspiration to, many of us, all of us, in that way. So Abhinivesh is an interesting thing. What do we do in that moment when we're truly faced with death? I had a very serious car accident that was going to be my ending. And in that moment, as I was either going to hurtle off the cliff or up the road, I just literally went, this is going to end the way it's going to end. I'm going to close my eyes, and if I'm heading out, I want to be right there. And I tumbled and tumbled and tumbled, and my car exploded in every direction. And this is the funny thing. I had a Ganesh statue this high, made of concrete, in my back of my SUV. I got so many concussions from Ganesh. He broke apart and bang, concrete was flying, concrete Ganesh was flying around, banging me in the head. So I had most of my head injuries were because of Ganesh. So I was like, okay, what are you trying to teach me, Ganesh? Apparently I needed to have my end of life moment, yeah, ended up upside down, complete dark, 2:30 in the morning. Literally wondered, first it was like, am I alive? Then it was like, okay, I think I'm alive. And then I was like, neck's okay, but again, and my knees were here. And I was upside down. And I was like, thank God I do yoga. Because I can do this pose, so I'm okay, no need, like your average 50, I was 55 at the time, I'm like your average 55-year-old man now would be dead, or completely freaked out. I'm cool. And then I had to figure out that my car was upside down, and I literally, probably took me a couple hours, had to dig into the snow through the moonroof that was not there and dig a hole and tunnel out. Yeah. And then I was like zombie. I was on the road at 2:30 in the morning with blood dripping down my head, like trying to hitch a ride. Nobody came, and then finally a woman came, and she raced by me, of course. And I was like, and then she backed up and rolled her window down, and I said, I know I look like I'm out of some scary movie, but I'm not expecting you to take me in your car. Would you the police station is 40 minutes past it. When you get there, would you tell them I'm here? And she said yes and left, and I didn't know that she was going to, but she did.
Oh my God.
So, but it was quite a wake-up call, and it was interesting to go, okay, wow, I was really ready, like I'm curious, I'm really curious, and I'm really curious, and I also have a belief that I think it's much better than what we're in, so I think I'm going to be taking a big exhale and going, wow, thank God that's over. So, interesting. Those are our 5 kleshas. Any thoughts about that? It's a good model, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is why I love yoga. It just lays out models. It doesn't even care whether it's right or wrong. This is like, here's a fun model. I love this model. Yes, and tell me your name.
Josh,
Hey, Josh.
you talk about trying to avoid suffering, and yet you also talk about how suffering taught you more than anything else. So there's some tension there.
There's some tension
Because I've
there.
experienced that in my life too, where some of the most educational experiences I've had were times of the worst suffering.
Yeah.
And at that time I read Man's Search for Meaning, which is a Holocaust memoir. And he talks about not avoiding suffering because there was no way to avoid suffering, but to get meaning from that suffering. And the real tragedy for him was for all that suffering to be meaningless and to not learn anything. And he says, you don't seek out suffering because that's masochism. But if you are going to suffer, then you need to learn something from it. And that learning gives meaning to that suffering. And I found that very helpful for me because there was no way to avoid suffering, at least, normal sense. At that time, I wonder what you think about that kind of tension, because you talked about your own suffering in the car accident.
Well, I love it, and of course, Viktor Frankl's book, *An Answer
Viktor
for
Frankl,
Meaning*,
yes.
is close to my heart, and also, like you, affected me deeply when I read it. And so he was a young Jewish psychologist who was in the Holocaust and had a very different slant than most people who were going through the suffering that he was seeing, and it's a very, very powerful book. And most of us, when we think about our awakening, and come onto the spiritual journey, most of us, it happened through some distress. I got cancer and almost died, and it woke me up. My mom passed away, and it woke me up. I mean, most of us, the beginning of our awakening has to do with some form of seeming suffering, where the questioning really begins. Childhood's over. Everything I thought I knew has just been swept away and is now up for questioning, and I'm in a crisis. Okay, so that happens from suffering. And then the question is this aspect of suffering, because trying to figure, this is sort of like one of those endless loop tapes that sort of goes like this. If we don't resist suffering and we allow it to be what it is, are we suffering?
Right.
Okay. So, because that's what happens. Because if you're an infinite, eternal, whole being, so I'm just going to play with this for myself. I believe I'm an infinite, eternal, whole being. I'm looking at this experience in front of me. I watched my parents grow old into their 90s and die. My dad constantly said, aging is not for sissies. Okay? And I watched them say goodbye to many things all the time. This is the last time I'll go golfing. This is the last time we'll go on a cruise. This is the last time we'll drive our car. This is the last time I'll walk without a walker. This is the last time we'll go down the stairs for dinner. This is the last time I'll get out of bed. This is the, it's like, whoa, it's a humble, I call it the great humbling. Okay? So, if any of us has got their eyes open about what's coming, in this next chapter, it's the great humbling. It will involve suffering. Okay? No matter how we do it, it will involve suffering. But if there's no resistance to it, are we suffering? Okay, so I have seen models of both, and Dasi?
Yeah, I just want to say that, taking care of Ramdas's last 15 years, probably the best years of his life, and that he was content and joyful, and he had so much pain. He had, paralysis on the right side of his body, his organs, there was paralysis, he had gout, he had diabetes, he had constant infections, he had so many things that were causing him pain. But he wasn't suffering. He used that pain to get closer to God.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Maharaji said to him, suffering brings me closer to God. And that's how he really used that. And, it was just amazing to watch that. He almost never complained.
Mm-hmm. And what a beautiful gift he gave you and those around him to be able to see that.
Yeah.
Because that's just the greatest teaching. Of
Yeah.
like, I am not my body,
Yeah.
and I am having this experience. The pain sucks. My mom too. She was in such pain, and she did not complain. She was such a trooper, and and it was a lot of pain. I have a friend, Vidya, who lived in the ashram. So she was a dear sister. We lived together in the ashram for a good decade, and then we taught programs together on yoga and transformation for many decades. And we had another program, so we had this year-long program where we took 12 people for a year called the Acharya program and brought them through a deep purification transformation process. And we're just about to start. So we had taken our 12 people, we had 100 people that we interviewed to get it down to 12, and then, which was a whole year before, then we had our 12 preparing for their year of getting to start. And and I'm trying to, well, okay, so I'm going to take a side note. In the program that we led, which was on how to be a transformational teacher, one of the exercises that I designed was leading people through their mock death. And it was hokey and it was fun. I was like, this is hokey. I'm gonna lead you through a death. Here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna lead you through a little visualization. You're gonna leave this workshop. You're gonna go to your doctor. Your doctor's gonna pronounce you with a cancer that has you dead in 2 weeks. Like, just go with it. Try it on, okay? Like, just play with it, feel it. There's gonna be, I'm gonna guide you through it. So I would guide people through this, and Vidya says to me, I've never done this. Rather than be the co-leader, I'm gonna do it. So she did it, guided everybody in the workshop through the whole thing. And it's very powerful, and in the end we literally pulled sheets over people's faces and buried them, and they have to write their own epitaph, and they write letters to people, their loved ones before they're heading off, what they really want to say and what was the purpose of their life. For those that get into it, lots of people resist too, not going there, just not going there. So whatever, everybody gets what they get. Vidya goes through the whole experience. Okay, literally in December, we're about to start January, she goes to her doctor and she gets diagnosed with a terminal cancer, very rare, a heart cancer called angiosarcoma, and they say this is called dead man's cancer because rarely do people get diagnosed with it, because we only find out if someone's dead, and we do an autopsy and we find out that they had this cancer. It's so fast growing. The longest that anybody who has ever lived has been 2 months who's been diagnosed with this. Okay, that's the longest person. So pack your bags, you're out of here. So I'm about to start a year-long program with this woman who's about to die now, and we spent a year getting all of these people together, and she says to me, we're not going to tell anybody. So I said, Vidya, that's impossible. This is a program on authenticity. That's just not going to work. And people got to know that they're going to be left with me. They may have signed up for you, and we got to tell them. So we told everybody, and one person dropped out, and it was perfect. The person who came in was perfect. We got together. So Vidya said to me and to herself, I am going to use this to be made as white as snow. Those were her things. I'm going to use this to be made as white as snow. And she lived for 6.5 years. Whoa. And our program that started was a 1-year program, went on for 6.5 years. We had a dedication to stay together until her passing. And she was convinced that the only reason she lived 6.5 years was because of us and the healings that we would do on her, and to take her to 6.5 years. But I watched her get down. Literally, she looked like an Auschwitz victim. When she was there, she was a skeleton. She preserved every ounce of her prana and life force. She could not waste an ounce of it. When she ate, she was a skeleton. Her hand come up to grab, everything was a meditation. Everything took breath and prana and effort, and she was so beautiful in my eyes. And then I would see people come and see her and be freaked out, and I was like, I couldn't get it. I was not seeing a skeleton. I was seeing such radiant beauty. So going back to the Course in Miracles, there's a thing in the Course in Miracles that when I first read this, I was 15. And in the Course in Miracles, it says this statement: all sickness is a form of separation from God. So in my judgmental 15-year-old mind, I was like, oh, I get it. Oh, she has breast cancer because she separated herself from God, and she's, angry, and that anger went into her breast. So it's her separation from God that caused her illness. And it's like, no. All sickness is separation from God. Okay, that's what sickness is. And you can look perfect and have the 10 body and be absolutely sick. And you can be dying of cancer like Vidya was and absolutely healed. There's no relationship, sickness and relationship, there's no difference. Sickness is separation from God, period. That's what sickness is. And the manifestation of it, now if there's going to be a radical remission and radical miracle healing, it's going to happen when you're so non-attached to whether you get healed or not. Thy will be done, Lord. You want to keep me here, I'll stay. You want to take me out now, I'll fine. Like, from that attitude, that's what the Course calls miracle readiness, that non-attachment. Open to your curriculum, not my will, but thine. You know, like, okay. So that non-attachment is what creates, rather than like, I need a miracle and I want to live and it's got to be this way and fix me now. You know, that is not what creates the miracles. You know, and the miracle could be, I'm dying and I'm gone. That could be the miracle. I'm going out now. See you later. Happy miracle. You know? So, yeah. All right. Here's what I have to say. We're done. We didn't make it very far. We got the one model of the Kleshas out there, but there are more good models in here. So, but thank you so much for coming. In case you can't tell, I really like talking about this stuff, and I like talking about it with people who will listen, and it means a lot to me, and I hope that it means something to you and helps in some way on this weird, wacky journey that we are on to find out who we are and what's it all about, Alfie.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Devashi.
Yeah.
It's once a month, right?
Once a month, first Wednesday of every month. A couple of announcements. If you would like to be on my mailing list, I would love it. I've never kept a mailing list in my life, and I'm now starting. So if you would like, I have a pen here. I would love to have your email. Email. And then I would like to say that I have an online course. So this Course in Miracles is really amazing. And there are 3 books in A Course in Miracles. One is the text, which is like a 600-page text. And then there's a workbook, which has 365 lessons, one for each day of the year. And then there's a short teacher's manual. The workbook, many people have started the workbook, and few make it through the 365 lessons. It can be a lot to integrate stuff like this, okay? So a lot of people get hooked up and stop. So I have an online course. It takes a group through together the year of the workbook. It begins January 19th, so if you're interested in joining us or you have any questions, let me know. And I have, coming up, I'll have 2 online sort of question answers, like what's it about, what's included in the online course, what is it done, but there's tons of support to integrate these lessons. And the lessons start with, again, it's all yoga. It's all a mind undoing and a mind training. So
Are there like Zoom,
yes,
like group meetings where we're all
you're
talking
put in a
about...
small group called an aditam group, which is a Sanskrit word that means to study. So you're put in a small study group. There's also every other week online whole group meeting on Zoom, you know, where everyone gets questions answered and we communicate. There's a Facebook group, closed Facebook group, an Instagram group where the daily lessons come. There's daily emails, there's daily texts, there's, you know, so the lesson is sort of coming at you, you know, everywhere, which is fun. Yeah, a good conversation as it continues. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any help setting up the room is greatly appreciated. And Dasi, always thank you so much for hosting and continuing this. Dasi's great work.
Thank you, Dustin.
Appreciate it.
Yes. Our only request is to drive slowly when you leave.
Drive slowly. And also, if you want, donations can go in the Hanuman donation box. And that would be greatly appreciated too. Should have turned on the lights. Let's